All right, folks, welcome back to the second episode of Catching Up with Greg. On today's show, we have Brian, the host of the game, the host with the most. Brian, why don't you say hi to everybody?
Hello, everybody! Brian here, BB Snap host, Snap Viber host, part-time Challenge on Snapchat host, the host of almost anything in the world. Hi.
Anything in the world. Yes, I like that. All right, Brian. So, as you were just saying, you're the host of quite a bit here. On what platform are you primarily on, and where can people find you?
Well, anyone who's listening to this right now will know that they can primarily reach me on Snapchat, but they know that all the games are posted on Instagram from all the DRs, from everything that's happening every night. Each of the 3 different series at this time have their own Instagram page they can go find and explore and all that good stuff.
What about our Cambodian audience?
Cambodian. What I would recommend is downloading NordVPN. They're able to get you into any area in the world, so you can watch whatever.
Okay. Awesome. So, Brian, one of your more popular games, or at least the longest lasting game so far, is BB Snap, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, and that page right now on Instagram has 1,498 followers. That's pretty impressive. How did you kind of reach that? Like, what was the process? Did you think that you were going to get that far? You want to dive into some of that?
So when the Instagram page started around season 17, it was just a way to connect to past players who are now audience members, or people who are always just more curious about the game, or just a place where we could all go and see past seasons, because I usually just post it on my story, like, oh, hey, look, this person won HOH, and obviously on Snapchat, those stories, get deleted after so many hours, but Instagram, it stays there forever. So it started just as a place for, like, an archive for past seasons. You can scroll back, like, hey, remember season 17 and this player, let's watch their video, it was funny, you know what I mean? So it started with that, then I eventually realized the more followers and the more traction and the more fancy you make your page look, the better chance this game can grow and get a larger audience. And then eventually I kind of wanted to hit a goal of 1,000 followers. So things that I did to kind of grow the page in that sense is have like fan favorite votes, where if you wanted to vote on like a comment on a certain post, you would have to follow to comment. Sometimes I went around to other games and followed their accounts and got some of their more popular players to play my game, which brought in audiences and stuff like that. And once I hit 1,000 followers, I feel more of a set in stone, more like a popular franchise in this overarching community that I'm now kind of just joining. And once people really hit that 1,000 follower goal, I feel like a lot of people take your game more seriously, see it more as a solid franchise and something they would be willing to try out. It shows that it has a good reputation. If it has a strong following, it's probably a good game.
Yeah. So, and I would call you the king. It seems like you're one of the leaders in this kind of thing. Nobody else's game can really touch yours. Am I right about that?
BB Snap wise, you know me, I have a slight ego. I'd say now, based off the Instagram fandom, there's tons of games on the Instagram fandom that are still alive. Like, one game I always looked up to is anyone, like, I'm not sure you guys heard of him, whoever's listening, is Reality X Ned. I never had a real conversation with the guy, but that
guy sucks.
No, he's an awesome guy from the things I've heard. He's someone who commits to his games, and he has a large following fan base, and he's someone I've always kind of looked up to as I started growing the Instagram account. Like, this is the standard. And he's someone who I believe, just like me, is still continuing his games. And other games that everyone says, oh, they're the best. Oh, here they are. They're great. And they've fallen off. I understand COVID was a great time, to play these games back in 2020 and 2021. And a lot of these franchises have fallen off. But I feel like I am the one that is constantly, cut that out, like constantly putting out. I can't say words.
I like that.
I feel like I'm the most constant franchise out there, always putting out seasons, always getting different players and stuff like that from around different communities. It's not just Instagram, it's not just Discord, it's not just Facebook. It's Skype communities, YouTube communities. People play these games real life. We've even had people who played these games, or not necessarily games, but actual shows. We had someone from one of the first few seasons of The Mole come play one of these games.
So we have movie stars, we have famous writers, actors, porn stars, adult entertainment services. We have everybody that comes and plays this game. On that track, through hosting, you've had quite a few characters, people that worked out, people that didn't work out. Are there any memories from any of the players, any specific players that maybe they tried to seduce you in some way to get farther into the game? I know I sure tried.
You sure tried. Most times unsuccessfully, but I'm not proud of that one time.
And I did win season 6.
Yeah, but he had to get the 9 before the 6.
Yeah. So, so are there any favorite seasons that do come to mind as you've evolved through this game? Most recently, we just played season 60. That was my retirement season.
Never say never. Never say never, Greg.
Yeah, I could see myself possibly coming back, but season 60. What did you think about that? How about that?
Season 60. It was an alright season. Is it top 5 all time? No, I don't think it was. I think the beginning was very predictable right before we hit jury. Like, we saw a lot of newer players get targeted, and I did feel bad for players like a Max, a Dre, a Nemi, those kind of players.
A Max, a Dre, and a Nemi.
Yeah.
That sounds like the start of a good joke.
A Max and Dre and Nemi walk into a bar. Or walk into season 60. They're all pre-jerk.
I don't think they'd walk into a bar. Are they all over the age of 21?
No, they're not. But
is that something that you're looking to do in the future? Is have an over 18 or over 21 cast to avoid some childish players or some discrepancies or any holes in the game that may come with school?
Not necessarily. I do want to lead to older casts. Like 18 plus is always the, goal. But at the end of the day, there's some 16 or 17-year-olds who I throw my trust in and I believe they're bigger characters, and some 18, 19, and 20-year-olds. People that, are a little younger but maybe around this community and play other games. I feel like I could rely on to show up every single night and give me DRs and content for everyone who's watching, versus some people who barely show up, who are just older. So my job is to put together the best cast to get the best game possible. And if that means I have to throw in a 16 or 17-year-old to do that over someone who's 19 or 20 years old, who I don't see taking this game as seriously as someone who's younger, then that is what I'm going to do. And other than that, that's my number one goal, is to make every season as best as I possibly can with the people I could possibly cast. If it turns out to be 18 plus, perfect. Nothing troublesome could come from that, but or not as much, but yeah, but it's still all about making sure the cast and the game is as good as it can be, no matter age, race, sexual orientation, religion, whatever it may be. I'm putting together the best cast. Doesn't matter what you represent. I want to put together the best cast as I possibly can.
As the games come along, we've seen a lot of players, as we've kind of talked about. Are there any players that really haven't shown up in a while that you would like back?
There's tons of people who played in the first 20 seasons I would love to have back, but what some people don't understand is the people from the first 20 seasons, like yourself, are just friends of mine, or around the time they were friends of mine. People I may have not talked to in over, 4 or 5 years now. And these people aren't usually people who watch Big Brother Survivor. These are what I call a homegrown talent like yourself. You know, you've probably never sat down and watched a full season, maybe an episode or two of Big Brother, an episode or two of Survivor you've watched, but you're not a fan of that show. You only played because you're a friend of mine and eventually you liked the game and you played 10 seasons overall of my franchise.
That is how I would describe myself, as a homegrown talent. I do like
Exactly.
that. Yeah.
And a lot of people from the first 20 seasons are homegrown talents in the sense of they've never seen this game before. They're just my friends or friends of friends, or maybe they played one game back in the day but have moved on. So a lot of the people that I would like to see from those seasons are very unlikely. But I would love to see the first two winners come back and play again. Abby, who won season 1, and Brittany, who won season 2. Both of which I still feel, I'm friends with both. I have an open conversation with both. But they're both moving on in life. One's about to get married, Brittany, in August. And they're all just moving on with life. And they only played this game because they're friends with me.
So, looking at this list right here, the rankings list, it's very popular. It's been a popular thing and something that people have wanted to see for a while. Right now I'm on the wiki taking a look at it, which everybody should check out the wiki. It's in Brian's Instagram bio. And but this ranking list that has been pretty infamous for the past couple years, I know people have been wondering about updates to it. Do you plan on updating it?
So it has been updated since season 60 has ended. I'm not sure if it's updated on the wiki.
No, it's not.
No, but I'm sure it will at some point. But it will be updated because obviously season 60 have a lot of heavy hitters who played in that. Yep. Some did well, some not. I'll say with the rankings post season 60, not a lot changed. Obviously, certain players like a Nick skyrocketed up in players.
I would think that I dropped.
You would probably be correct.
So currently I am in second place. Now, do you have a copy of that new list?
Yeah, I do have the list. I'm looking at right now.
Do you want to run down the top 10 players for me right now?
Sure. So we have, starting from number 10, and we'll go up to number 1. So number 10 is Alex Palin. Then we have Caden Accord, who played, both of those players played in season 10. Then we have, or not 10, sorry, season 60. Then we have the season 60 winner, Nick Basile. Then in 7th place, we have Isabella. 6 is Colin. 5 is Richard. 4 is then you, Greg. Then we have Chad, Lindsay, and then Alex Ferg at number 1 still.
So Lindsay has surpassed me and taken the second place ranking, and Chad has stayed in 3rd place?
Correct.
So currently I'm touching tips with Richard.
Yes, you are.
All right. Now, speaking of Richard, do we plan to see Richard come back in any seasons anytime soon?
Richard is always a possibility. It depends on when things are for Richard. He wants to come back and play. I do know that. It just depends on timing for him. Richard is someone who I'm not sure when you'll see him, but I'm sure before this franchise ends officially, you'll see him at least once more.
Fantastic. I'd love to have him on the show as well. So Brian, there's a new game in town called The Challenge. That's your newest game. Why don't you tell us a little bit about The Challenge? Because I'm not really too familiar with it.
So, The Challenge, for those of you who play BB Snap or Snapviver and think you're pretty decent at comps, maybe you rely more on competitions than social or strategic, or you don't like the idea of group voting and too much stress in that sense. The Challenge is kind of the opposite of BB Snap and Snapviver. The Challenge is a game solely based on competitions. At the end of the day, competitions will decide who wins this game and who gets eliminated from the game. There may be some voting in the game, but at the end of the day, your competition ability will either keep you safe or win this game for you. So that is how The Challenge pretty much is different from BB Snap and Snapviver, where it's more competitions and more so based on how well you think you can handle competitions versus strategy and social. So anyone who's a fan of the actual challenge, like MTV Challenge, obviously, players can play so many seasons in a row. There's people who've probably played like 9 seasons in the first 20 seasons. And that's kind of something I want to go for this challenge as well. So people who always sit around and be like, when you invited me back to BB Snap, why wasn't I on Snapviver All-Stars? When can I play again? The challenge, you don't really have to worry about that, because there's going to be vets in pretty much every single season of the challenge. You have so many opportunities to play the challenge, because it's no longer just rookie seasons, unless rookie season happens to be the theme. But most of the time, it's just going to be mostly, if not at least half, vets in every challenge season. Vets can come back and play
that's
as
fantastic.
many times as they want.
That's fantastic. So for all of you out there that think that you were an all-star and weren't, you can come back and play the challenge. That's great.
And we have 2 seasons completely done in the bag. Season 3 of the time that we're making this podcast, the cast reveal is happening today.
Oh, so who won it?
I'll tell you, it wasn't you, but or me. But this season was the ground floor, pretty much. I know I just said this game is for those who think they're good at challenges, and for this season, we wanted to give those people who may struggle in challenges in BB Snap and Snapviver a shot. So everyone playing has historically
been challenged.
Their competition ability leaves a lot to be desired.
So, Brian, especially in this last season that I played in, season 60 of BB Snap, there was kind of some discrepancies between the new school and the old school, and I think we all know which side I'm on, the old school side. What do you think about that and that going on throughout future seasons now? Because it seems like something that might carry on with some of the older players.
I think old school and new school are very different on how they choose to play this game. So for old school, what I realize is they're there to kind of just be there and have fun. There's not going to be a lot of strategy. There's not going to be a lot of social game. They're there to kind of just kick their feet up, goof around until about the halfway point of the game, and then they're like, oh shit, I have a chance to win. So then they start to kick it up in the gear of strategy and kick it up in the gear of trying to win comps, and they're kind of just there hanging out until they feel like, I have something to win. I have a goal now. Here's what I need to do to win now that I see how this game is playing out. Where new school, they're trying to hit home runs, from day one or pregame, whatever you want to call it. They're going to go out there and try to be the most social players in the season. And in a game that's kind of half new school, half old school, new school is going to out-talk old school, 7 days out of the week. And new school, obviously, or old school, doesn't play like that, and they get rubbed the wrong way because they're just there to play, and they see all these new kids trying so hard, and that's not wrong. That's not the wrong way to play. In fact, I would rather play a new school game than an old school game because everyone's trying to be social. Old school, they're old, like I said earlier. These are people who didn't, come into this game or franchises or community because they like these games. It's because they're friends of mine and they just know the process. They've been through these games, they've had their own sense of a social game before. Now they have to go do it again, and it's kind of, a little bit just how they play the game, and a little bit like, okay, I just finished this season a year ago, and I have to go in, and I'm all the way back to step 1, and now I got to go put on a happy face and ask everyone how their day's doing. Where new school, they're happy to do that because they're playing the game and they're trying to win. And how you win this game 9 times out of 10 is having a great social game. If you have a great social game, you're not going to be first boot, second, third, fourth, or fifth. A great social game most likely will get you to jury. And new school can do that. And they're going to be playing hard from day one, where old school, they only play hard when they see a chance to win. Now, when the game gets later.
What do we think about when it comes to players like Lindsay and Colin from old school, and probably a few others that I'm not really thinking of, that really are still in there when it comes to winning these comps, and strategy-wise, they're out talking to people. See, I do think that a lot of that is right when it comes to old school. We like to have a lot more fun. with the game itself. But yeah, I don't see the point in going around and saying hello to everybody and asking how someone's day is. It seems like it's a bunch of it's just really fake. But I mean, I guess that is one strategy on how to win. But from season 60, being part of the older school kind of group, it seemed like it was working very well for a while. And at least even towards the end, I mean, if Lindsay didn't make one of the worst mistakes of her game career, she would have won.
I think it also comes down to competitions and Lindsay picking it up in the later half of the game. Because she did the absolute right move of teaming up with Nick once Alex Palin went out. And you still have Chad and you still have Davey around who are working together and with Nick. And then you have obviously Lindsay's loyal to Colin, your Caden, your Isabella, those players. And they were, had like a side deal. Hey, my guys won't go after you if your guys don't go after me. And we'll be there for each other when these sides kind of dimmer down. And that was the absolute right game move for both of them. And it happened at the halfway point of the game, and that's when I say old school kicks it in the high gear. Like, okay, now the game is starting. It's no longer sitting around and drinking Miller High Life with their thumbs up their ass. Now they're like, okay.
I'll tell you, my thumb was wrapped around a Miller High Life.
It's once jury hits, once we get down there, that's when old school, like Lindsay, picks it up. And she was doing the right game move. Obviously, Final Four.
Terrible mistake.
Terrible mistake. I also think it was a mistake keeping Nick over Chad. Old school, for people who value comp wins and how you target people, I understand Chad, name value, already a 2-time winner. But Nick was slaying comps. And Chad, compared to Nick, wasn't going to win those heavy duty comps down the road.
Mm-hmm.
But I understand name value there. But Nick was the absolute next target after Davey if old school was slightly smarter. But I understand Chad's name value was just too high to leave around. And if he gets to the end, good chance he wins. So I understand that. But Nick was the right guy to go there. And that was part of old school's mistake for letting Nick slide where they should have gone after Chad. But it was also Lindsay's mistake not cutting Nick. Whatever deal they had, promised each other Final 3 if given the opportunity, cut each other Final 4, and then Nick wins.
I also believe one of the biggest mistakes right off the rip was me being targeted. I don't think that I think my name just gets in the way of things. I mean, I am associated with a certain group, but what it seemed, it was just a young, naive, new school kids. They got hear of my name and some other names possibly, and they just completely kept targeting one direction, which is what I feel like we're going to see out of these newer kids. One-sidedness, they're going to be almost like robots. While old school may not be able to win as many comps as them and doesn't go door knocking and seeing how everybody is every day, I still do give the edge to the old school. We are much smarter, much more capable players than the new school.
I think old school is smarter when it comes to on paper. Like, hey, it doesn't make sense to do this. Let me explain to you why. Do you not see this connection? Do you not see this? And new school is sometimes a little too move happy and sometimes not too move happy at all. Sometimes they want to make a move for the sake of making a move, and the other time they're a little scared to make the move and it ends up biting them in the ass. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they wait too long to make a move and it hurts them. Sometimes they make a move too early and then they're this ultimate target until they're eventually taken out. So new school, it really depends who you're talking to and when it is. They really need to find out like when the right time to make a move is. Like Davey winning that HOH after his return to the game. I understand why he went after you, and that's partly your own fault, obviously not knocking on the door of the new school like that. I understand that's just not how old school plays. But
well, I am also an exceptional player where I barely add anybody.
You're also used as a figurehead, if you didn't realize, by old school. You're the biggest talker, you're the loudmouth, except when it comes to DMs.
Yes,
you're gonna go in there and you're gonna flex your muscles, drink your Miller High Life, and tell these new school kids to get out of my house, in a sense.
Well said.
They saw you as this figurehead, and when you let players like Colin and Lindsay and the Palins hide behind you, so if anyone like a Davey happens to win an HOH for new school, they're gonna go after you and not them. who are actually playing a little harder than you, a little bit more strategic than you. So that's why you were the target over Davey. Now, was that the right move? At the time, no, but I do believe Davey ended up with how things worked out in the game. He did make the right move going after you and Colin for that HOH, because eventually the Palance needed him and he needed the Palance. So it was the right move for him to come back into the game and do what he did at that point to go after you.
Yeah. All right. Well, Brian, thanks for coming on today, man. I hope you enjoyed your time here. I'm looking forward to making some more episodes, and I'm assuming you'll be on some more in the future. If you want to come on, we'll get some more people on here as well. Maybe get a few people. Everybody else who's listening, I'd love to have you on the show. If you show some interest, you know how to reach out to me one way or another. Yeah, so keep listening, and thanks for showing up to the second episode of Catching Up with Greg. See ya.